I think it's an interesting dynamic. I think it's an interesting look that, I mean, kind of confirms what we already know, but I think it gives you an idea of where politics is headed. Because as we see this sort of intensity of politics go up, as we see the rhetoric and the attention and the, there's always a camera. As we see all of that going on, we're gonna see less focus on substance, less focus on philosophy, on intellect, on skill set, and more focus on suave. Real focus on eloquence and coolness. And I think that's a fact. And I think candidates, you're going to see more people trying to recruit candidates that it's more about how cool they are as well as their pedigree. It's about how well they can speak publicly, how well they can motivate people. And that, generally they're looking for somebody that is more Hollywood friendly as opposed to somebody relatable, as opposed to somebody intelligible, somebody knowledgeable, somebody upstanding, somebody outstanding. Those take a back seat to coolness. And that's kind of where I think we're headed, because quite frankly, getting somebody to get out and vote requires some substance, or fear, or both. Getting somebody to vote for you in a primary involves coolness, because you've got to win over a lot of these pop culture folks. Now, what's interesting about the primary season sort of getting kicked off here, so we've got a lot of preseason gaming going on, if you will. Romney and Jeb Bush, they seem to be, and this is some reports that I've heard, and through connections, I know some people in the Beltway, and it's probably not a big leap to say it's right, but I've heard that Romney and Jeb are fighting over donors already, and Romney sending out notices saying, hey, don't fund Jeb until after Romney's made his decision. And by chance, if Romney ends up running, his big competition for the moderates, his big competition for the big money, the big GOP money, is going to be Jeb Bush. He's not going to have much competition from good old Huckabee or Santorum or Kasich or Jindal or Perry. Perry's kind of an in-betweener when it comes to that stuff. He's trying to moderate himself, so he very well might be able to take over moderate donations, get the funding in that way. And I think it'll be interesting to watch. Absolutely interesting. But a nightmare scenario has become more possible. And it's really unfortunate, but it is what it is. And it is the vague and far shot Hail Mary possibility that Jeb and Romney could be on one ticket. Jeb and Romney. Could also see a Jeb and Christie ticket. And I felt like I was in a horror movie when I first thought about it earlier today, because I've been dismissing them because I don't think that they're going to be able to win. I don't think that they're going to be able to get the nomination, because there's no way they're going to motivate the base. But I thought that about Romney. And a lot of people I know got behind him as anti-Obama. But, say Levy, I think Romney and Jeb meeting could be talking about working together, because if those two pull punches on each other and aim everywhere else, they would set themselves up for a very pretty ticket in terms of two moderates. They know they can work together. They know they'll both get the big money, and they know that they'll be able to clear the battlefield more effectively if they work together. So, I would not be surprised. Not at all, if that's what ends up happening. And it's a little bit terrifying, because that is a very powerful combination. You've got Mitt Romney, who's proven himself by winning the nomination before. Granted, he's been out of politics for a good long while, so there's a pretty strong chance that Mr. Magic Underwear is not counted out, despite the fact that the base is done with him. He couldn't beat Obama, so we don't need him. We don't want him. He's practically a Democrat in his own right. And as far as Jeb goes, he hadn't governed anything in a while either. And quite frankly, I think we're all done with Bush. I think the country is done with Bush. Now, the big money donors might like the idea of a Bush, but let me tell you, I do not believe that he can win. I don't think for a second that he can win. And I say that because I think you got to have a little more gumption to turn out enough votes to beat the Democrat. And, Romney, in terms of skeletons in his closet, it was twisted words at best. I mean, he didn't have some big hulking problem, like a massive character flaw. He really didn't. I mean, his biggest problem was just being too liberal. I mean, that's a big problem to have when you're running in the GOP, but there was nothing to rip him apart over short of being bigoted, like me when I said magic underwear. I was a little bigoted. But, I mean, that's the joke the common man tells. That's the working man, the blue-collar man. When they think about that, that's kind of what comes out of their mouths. I heard it today in a reference to Romney. So, and just from an everyday guy conversation, I was walking through to grab a drink, and somebody said, "Oh, the guy that wears the magic underwear." And if that's what that Joe Plummer remembers about Mitt Romney, probably not our guy for president. Though he might be able to sell some of that underwear to some folks. I don't mean his, I meant like brand. Gross. But I think it's been interesting because on the Democrat side, you've heard a couple of names thrown out there, but there's no real competition. There's been no concrete, grounded, actual thing. There's been no person that's put out that you look at and you're just like, okay, this person's going to run. This person's going to contend. The Democrats, they haven't done it. And what's, I think, interesting and smart is that they've chosen to do that. Because whereas you've got, it's 2015 now, they've still got, at least a year and a half. It's a year, 11 months till the name's on a ballot. And they are setting themselves up to get torn apart, these Republicans. Because now that you're checking the field, and you've got these people that have announced themselves, the vetting process is going to begin. Sure, they'll have more time to raise money. Absolutely. And there's no arguing that. And that's great for some of these mega donor people like Romney and Bush. However, these people being announced early are also going to be vetted that much more, which is good for us. It's good for the American people that these guys are getting put under the microscope early, and every little nitty-gritty detail is going to get thrown out there. But in terms of whether or not it's intelligent for a campaign, I think getting your name out there this early is a bad call. I think that, we're all talking about it, we're all interested in it, and they're going to get more, their name put out in the news more often, but there is a huge risk that you are going to slip up and say something stupid. I mean, granted, if you think before you speak, you ought not to have that problem. But, even the most polished of politicians, even the most well-versed, is going to slip up, is going to have issues. And, we saw it with Romney, with his binders comment. And so when you put yourself out there this early, it's a big issue. Rand Paul is already becoming the target. And it's a little disgusting to see the goings on, because you've got Rand Paul being left out of Fox News polls on who should be the GOP nominee. You've got him not even being considered on, these little social media questions, and it's all Jeb, Christie, Romney, Walker, that kind of thing. But you don't see Rand, and it looks like, despite his extreme moderation, despite his move to the middle, or should I say to the right of libertarian, he has been catching lots of flack. And Republicans, quite frankly, don't like him. They don't trust him. Which is really stupid, because Rand Paul has learned a thing or two. He has absolutely learned a thing or two from his father's mistakes. Number one, he is a libertarian. Now, I don't think anybody can question that. But he's also done a great job of not being a libertarian in years. Now, unfortunately, he has come out with some of the fringe stuff. Well, I say fringe. He's come out and said logical things, and he's gotten in trouble for it, because as a libertarian, you can't make some of the statements you've made to someone without an education in political philosophy, without somebody who actually knows a lot about politics. You can't tell the average man some of the stuff you debate. Because when you do, when you get into those conversations, they think you're crazy. And, generally speaking, when somebody's, discussing politics with you, if you say some of these libertarian points, some of these freedom-minded ideas, they look at you like you're insane. And they've been conditioned their whole life to do that. Most libertarians, myself included, I was conditioned to think that way. So, you can't blame them. And whereas Ron Paul's got no problem throwing his foot squarely down his throat, Rand Paul's done a great job of not doing that. He's got maybe one or two gaffes on the record, and I think he would have been rewarded if he'd have stuck to his guns. But for those flaws, he has also done a great job of reaching out to people that Republicans haven't been able to reach. Rand Paul does really great with the minority vote. Rand Paul appears more moderate. And clearly it's irksome to some who are neocons. And unfortunately, Fox News' bias on stuff has kind of proven that to be the case. Washington Free Beacon as well. They put out some articles laying into Marianne Copenhaver, libertarian girl. They laid into her saying that Rand Paul's social media person is a crazy. And I think I was actually quoted in one of their articles. My name was Facebook user. They didn't actually use my name, but I was quoted. I was very proud. In fact, I'm going to look for it now. Reason did a good job of